Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Julia, I am a tarot coach and this is your weekly dose of mindful tarot coaching. 3 questions, 6 cards and several interpretations are waiting for you in this short video. As always, I invite you to listen carefully, pick what resonates and following your gut feeling, create your very own individual meaning. It's important to emphasize this because this is going to be a general collective reading, therefore it has its limits. That's why it is especially important that you filter the information and translate it to your own life. Alright, this was the usual disclaimer and now we can get started. First and foremost, let me very quickly get back to the previous week as always. You may remember that the main topic of the last week was some kind of stagnation and frustration and disturbance in the force. As for my part, I can say yes, the whole week feels like there is not much flow. Things feel to be blocked for some reasons, I don't know. And every time I experience this, I have to remind myself of the advice of the Queen of Swords and the Word. You may remember that they advised us to be assertive, to communicate clearly, to express ourselves in a concrete, direct and authentic way. And every time I experience this stagnation during this week and get back to this advice, I experience that things start to flow easier and I can somehow change things for the better. That's why I wanted to get back to this so that you can also be, so that you are also reminded of this and can use this energy accordingly. All right, this was the last week and now let's take a look at the next one, which is pretty much about change. Actually, 3 cards are shouting that there is going to be some change and there might be some change because, as you may know, tarot is not forecasting the future, is not telling the future, but it tells us what are the tendencies and what are the potentials, and the choice is always ours. And this is pretty clear in this reading as well. It gives us different options. I can go for option A or option B and accordingly embrace this change or no. And now, having said this, let's take a look at the details. All right then, ladies and gentlemen, the next week is defined by number 20 in the Major Arcana, the Judgment. You may know that this card is one of the transformational cards in the tarot. It signifies the end of a cycle. You may guess this by taking a look at number 20. After this, only number 21 comes before we start again with the Fool. So the Judgment signifies accordingly the end of a cycle, the end that is coming. And this end is super promising because it also carries the potential of awakening, as you can see. These people are emerging from their boxes, literally being naked, and this nudity is a sign, a symbol of transformation and rebirth. Accordingly, this card is about, again, ending, and the very important motive of this ending is to leave the past behind, which means in this case is to close the old stories, right? So putting the stories together, putting the big picture together, taking a look at it and saying goodbye. Hello old stories, ciao old stories, ciao old bullshit. It's time to move on. So this card is about counting down and releasing old stories. And Now we can take a look at the other card from the Minor Arcana, which is the Seven of Swords. And the Seven of Swords is super interesting here because at this point it can go several ways. So I can consider this card as a card that signifies literally leaving old ideas behind, which is a great completion of this card. So it can mean in this case that I am really going to leave old ideas, attitudes, and beliefs behind and pick only those ones that are serving me. So taking only those ones and taking only those ones when moving on that are serving me, right? So this is one interpretation of this card, and I think this in this case is a great fit. This is option A. However, there is an option B. And in this case, the other interpretation of this card is trying to find a shortcut, trying to find an easier way, which in this case I think is about not really wanting to go with this change, maybe being afraid of it, and accordingly trying to sneak away from it, trying to find an easier way in the hope that we can somehow avoid this very necessary change. So accordingly, it can mean that I try to find shortcuts in the hope that I can somehow avoid this change. As you may guess, this is not the best strategy in the future, for the future. However, it is your choice. And now let's take a look at the next column, which is about risks and potentials. And this is where it gets super interesting because what we have here is a reversed tower completed by a King of Wands. Well, the Tower is another card of transformation. So here we have a confirmation that yes, something is coming to an end. You may know that the Tower is about profound changes and sometimes really shaky and stormy ones, because we have here a tower that is falling apart literally. Why? Because it cannot go on like this. Accordingly, the tower signifies that we really have to change something. We really have to release not only things and concepts, but really profound ideas. Because in the case of the tower, as I have already mentioned, we are talking about profound changes, sometimes even changes of paradigms. And that's why it is super shaky and super scary. Well, the tower has come up reversed, and it tells me that, it tells me that we may, as we have already seen here, we may resist this change because we are afraid and because we don't want to experience this painful ending. This is a totally normal human reaction. I can understand it. It is okay. However, it is not a very fruitful and productive strategy. Please remember that this change has to happen, and your resistance is going to make things only even more painful. Accordingly, resistance is useless. Keep this in mind when trying to avoid this change. It is good for you. The tower experience is a painful one, a shaky one, but a really, really cleansing one, because it's going to clear the way for a totally new future. Well, the tower is completed by a King of Wands. And I think that this card is great here because it gives us hope. Why? Because the King of Wands is someone who has proven himself. He has already endured a lot of difficulties in life. That's why he has become a king. Yeah, he has gone through a lot of fire, and accordingly, he is super experienced. He knows his own power and strength, right? He knows that no matter what comes, he can endure it and he can go on and move on, right? And I think we are going to need this kind of energy pretty much given the circumstances and given the shaky changes that are going to happen. So this card is a great one here. It gives us a lot of hope and encouragement that yes, you are able to cope with these difficulties. You have the inner power, you have the inner strength, you just have to discover it within. And the right strategy is, again, to embrace this energy, to remember it, and to believe and to understand that yes, you are capable and you are competent, right? This is important. So when these shaky events are starting to happen, please remember that you are competent and you can call upon this warm, fiery energy that is going to help you through this hell first towards a more towards a better future and a rebirth and transformation. Well, last but not least, we have here two cards that are completing this in a very, very interesting way, giving us advice how to deal with this. And here we go again with another card of transformation, the Death. The Death is another card of change. It also signifies that yes, something is coming to an end. A cycle has reached its ending point. This change wants to happen. And I would like to remind you here again that death is also about rebirth. So the ending of a cycle also brings renewal and totally new beginnings. Accordingly, the death encourages us to embrace this ending, right? Embrace this ending, do not resist it, and be ready to release the past, release the old stories, all the old bullshit and all the old burdens that are keeping you in the past, right? So release everything. I know it's easier said than done, but please try to do so. And make sure that you are throwing out everything that is not serving you anymore. What is this that is not serving you anymore? Well, in this case, this is signified by the reversed King of Swords, which is in a normal position, is about the rational mind, and it is in an upward position, a well-balanced rational energy. However, it has come up reversed, and in this case it means that this rational sword energy has come out of its balance. What does it mean? It means that it is too rigid, it is too rational, too logical, too judgmental, and it's too hard. So accordingly, it is time to release your too rigid ideas, your judgmental side, right? Your side, it's time to release this ego mind, which is judging everything, which is too rigid, which is a very interesting hand back to the Tower. And it's time to release this. It's time to release the old stories and all the old concepts that are keeping you in the past and that have become too rigid, not allowing you to move on. I love how this comes together. Now let's take a look at the whole stuff and you will see how the constellation is coming together. So, again, The next week, something is coming to an end if we allow it to come to an end. We have 3 major arcana cards that are shouting about this. And accordingly, our job or challenge is going to be to embrace this change, to release the old stories, all the old bullshit which we are telling to ourselves, and to release our judgmental part or rigid part and all the old self-limiting beliefs that are, again, blocking us from growth. In case we are able to do so, in case we are able to give up our resistance and to pick only the beliefs that are serving us in the future. In this case, we can allow this beautiful energy to emerge, which is again about believing in yourself, knowing that you are capable of of pursuing your goals, and knowing that you are competent. I love this because I think many of us are telling us the story that I am not enough. Time to release that bullshit. Well, thanks a lot for showing up today. Thanks a lot for listening. I also highly recommend you to watch my brand new video about justice. You can find this video here. Just click on this. Now, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. Thanks for liking, for sharing, for subscribing, and see you soon again. Ciao!